If you watched the last video, you'll know that Gav and I were forced to flee Les Portes du Soleil in France through the Mont Blanc tunnel to Italy in search of some dry riding. So this time we're going to take a look at the bike destination in the Aosta Valley that saved our holiday, Pila Bikeland. The bike park, or bike stadium as they prefer to call it, can be reached by car or by gondola from Aosta. Now, while the one chairlift that awaits you in Pila might not sound very stadium-like, this one lift actually services 6 main lines and an array of linking trails that deliver plenty of variety. On top of that, there's also a 1,000 metre freeride descent back to Aosta. So, what's not to like for a ticket price of just €26 a day? A good place to start a day in Pila is on the Blue Flow Trail, which weaves through some truly beautiful alpine terrain. This is definitely the most beginner-friendly trail in the bike park, with a shallow gradient and a consistent riding surface. However, if you're on a downhill rig like Gav, you'll want to try and carry as much speed as possible to avoid having to pedal too much.
Pull that bit close together.
Just be aware though, that some of the corners might be a little bit longer than you're expecting.
Whoa!
As you ride further down the trail, the gradients and speeds do increase slightly, but there's nothing really too hairy, providing you don't charge in blind on your mate's rear wheel like I did. One thing's for certain though, by the end of 10 minutes of solid flow, you'll be properly warmed up. If you were comfortable with everything on the Blue Flow Trail, it might well be time to move on up to the Blue Freeride line, first half of which flip-flops through set after set of perfectly crafted berms, with remarkably few braking bumps. The second half of the trail has a rougher, much more natural surface, and the berms are not quite as high as up top, but there is still enough support, and truly flat corners are a rarity. Despite being called a freeride trail, there are no gaps or big jumps that you need to be concerned with on this trail, but there are a few opportunities to pop off of some of the rollers on the final straight before you turn onto one of the other trails to complete the descent back to the left. Trail number 2, a red freeride line, branches off near the top of the blue line.
That's better.
And is initially pretty similar in character, just a tad steeper and perhaps a little rougher from seeing more traffic.
Send it!
After the trail crosses a bridge over the blue line, there are a couple of jumps before you get to a number of options that branch off to the left, including 2 black ones, which we'll look at shortly, and red number 7 that for some reason we flew past on every single lap without stopping to check it out. The further you get down this trail, the steeper and tighter the berms get, which can be extremely satisfying once you've figured your way through the braking bumps which inevitably build up in these sorts of corners. If you don't feel that the last trail was challenging enough, you can always add in the 2 black options, numbers 5 and 6, which are quite a bit steeper and a fair bit spicier. If we'd had more time, I would definitely have liked to have spent some of it cleaning up my scrappy performance on these 2 trails. The red freeride line on the other side of the lift is probably the most physically and technically demanding of all the red lines, with some pretty big holes in it when we were there. It does, however, have more jumps and drops than the other red trails. As well as my favourite set of corners on the whole mountain. After it intersects with the end of the blue freeride trail, it also becomes a blue, providing a slightly easier route back to the lift. Also off to the right at the top of the lift is trail number 3, the downhill. As you would expect, this one is very rough and really makes you work for it. All the way down though, there are both red and black options.
It's a bit janky, but it's not super gnarly. That is.
So if something just looks a little too gnarly, there are alternative ways down, which gives you a great way to work on your progression and build up to some of the more challenging bits. It's not all chunky downhill though. There are also some more bike parky sections that allow you to get off the brakes, as well as a couple of super fun flat out step ups. My absolute favourite trail on the whole mountain though has to be the freeride trail back to Aosta, which makes it possible to drop some truly ridiculous altitude. In fact, because we didn't even have to queue once for the lift, in just one day we managed to descend almost 10,000 metres. Make sure you watch out next week for a closer look at this absolute gem of a trail. In the meantime though, thanks for coming along, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.